Hello, all you BC WrestlePod nerds out there, and welcome, nerds, and welcome to another rendition of the Friday Night Faction Review, your weekly or somewhat weekly WWE Smackdown review team. I am the host with half. I am one of your hosts here, Mikey, also known as El Jefe. I am the man with half a plan and the face that kind of runs the place a little bit. And joining me this week is my other co-host, Minnie.
Just a dude.
Just the dude. That's your new moniker instead of the Prodigy. It's just the dude.
I just work. I should have just made myself. I just said I just work here.
That's your moniker. It's like, I just work here. Unfortunately, we are missing John, also known as the professor around these parts. He's just doing a lot. But
he is a professor after all.
Yes, and as we learned earlier in the week from our group chat, he is in the midst of preparing for the end of the school year stuff and finals and things like that. So hopefully he'll be joining us back in 2 weeks, and I'll talk about that more at the end of this review.
Also, happy Mother's Day.
Yes, and happy Mother's Day at the time of this recording, whether it's official Mother's Day or Mexican Mother's Day, which was on Friday, wherever you celebrated. Say hello and give thanks to your mothers and your motherly figures.
Happy Mother's Day, Mommy.
Yes, I knew you were going to say that too. But this episode of SmackDown flew by really quickly. Holy crap.
Because there was a lot of really short matches, but it made it it wasn't like I'm sitting there like watching like, is this over yet? Which I feel like happens a lot with Raw, with that luchador guy, but it felt like it went by pretty quick.
It really, really did. And a lot of this SmackDown was dedicated to the qualifying matches for King and Queen of the Ring, and we'll get into those in detail. So expect this episode to be not more than maybe 20-30 minutes, depending on how far we get. Because this SmackDown flew by quick, and this review is going to as well. But let's talk about the big news that popped out of this episode, because that's what we kicked off SmackDown this week. We have Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare, come down to the ring, and Nick Aldis is waiting in the ring for him. Love watching Cody's entrance, the theme song be banging. But as soon as everyone gets settled into the ring, Nick Aldis congratulates Cody on a successful defense of the title at Backlash in France, which I'm like, oh yeah, this is the first SmackDown post Backlash. Everything just blurs together.
That is true, but with Cody's theme song, it's on one of my playlists on Spotify, so I'll be like jamming to it, and then if I'm at a red light and that low part comes up, I will do it in my car and feel like the absolute nerd, like, you know what, fuck it, it's worth it.
We love it. So Nick congratulates Cody on a successful title defense against AJ Styles in France at Backlash, and Nick Aldis has heard Cody Rhodes in terms of wanting to be a fighting champion. So at King and Queen of the Ring, he has found his next opponent. And cue Logan Paul's music hitting. And it's going to be, before we get into the rest of this, Logan Paul's going to be the next person to challenge Cody for the title. And I'm going to quote Jesse, one of our Ring of Honor hosts, who is not the biggest fan of Mr. Paul himself and hates the idea. He's like, damn it. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm kind of surprised that it took this long. I mean, he had his one match against Roman, but like we really haven't actually seen Cody versus Logan Paul, I don't think yet, right?
No, I don't think we have. So this is going to be
surprised it took this long for Logan to face the big baby face of the company.
Right. Yeah, this is really interesting. And so initially I was like, oh, okay, so Cody and Logan are going to fight. That's awesome. Well, then we get into the promo of this. Cody and Logan go back and forth a little bit. Logan lists the ingredients, the nutritional facts of his prime, which was hilarious to watch. But ultimately, at Saudi Arabia, King and Queen of the Ring, this is going to be Logan Paul versus Cody Rhodes in a title for title match, which means that either Cody's walking out as the undisputed and United States champion, or Logan Paul's walking out with his United States championship and being the new undisputed WWE champion. Cody has to win, right? There's no way we give it to Logan, right?
Yeah, I know. It's that or Logan wins due to shenanigans.
Which is very fair. And I'm leaning towards, in the perfect world, Cody Rhodes would win. But because of where SummerSlam is And I could see them having Logan Paul hold on to that title until SummerSlam. I can see that, which makes me a little bit afraid. But say what you will about Logan's shenanigans and him as a person, his in-ring ability has vastly improved. And I'm still excited for the match. Obviously, we're not going to be covering it because it is a Saudi Arabia show, but it's definitely depending on what happens at King and Queen in the Ring is definitely going to set a precedent of how the rest of the summer is going to go as we go through Clash at the Castle, Money in the Bank, and then ultimately SummerSlam to end the summer season for WWE.
Yeah.
It's going to be a busy summer.
There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, and we're gonna peek behind the curtain for all you fans. Yesterday, I sent a text message to the boys telling them I went a little bit overboard, and I had scheduled all of the pay-per-view reviews and gave a pay-per-view review schedule for the summer, which covers all from June, July, and all of August, and that's not even including pay-per-views that have yet to be announced yet. We're gonna be busy during the summer. Exactly, we're gonna be busy during the summer. But we get another match added to King and Queen of the Ring, so it is title for title, Logan versus Cody. And then we're also getting Becky versus Liv, which is very interesting too, which was announced on Monday Night Raw for Saudi. There's a lot of moving pieces, and depending on what happens is going to weirdly affect how the rest of the summer goes. But we leave this in-ring segment, and we get a backstage interview with AJ Styles, how he's going to take out Randy Orton in the match and move on in the tournament for King of the Ring. Which then leads us into our first match of the evening. This is the first quarterfinal match for Queen of the Ring, where we saw Naomi taking on Nia Jax, who is newly minted on the SmackDown roster. We're not wasting time putting her on television. And I gotta say, this was actually a really good match. I enjoyed it.
Well, Nia is, I can't believe I'm fucking saying this. She's gotten better. I kind of almost don't like the fact that I said that. But, Naomi's always super freaking talented, so of course this match was going to be good.
Absolutely. It definitely was a really good match. Nia Jax pulls out the victory here, and she's moving on to the next round. If it feels like we're going to go through all these matches really quickly, it's because a lot of these matches barely cracked maybe 6-7 minutes tops. Some of them shorter than that.
Short.
Yeah, so not a lot of depth to it, but it was still a great match, and I feel that's going to be a common theme as we go through the rest of these. But Nia Jax defeats Naomi and moves on to the semifinals. And
this is what happens when SmackDown is absolutely muddied by a bunch of bloodline bullshit.
Oh my gosh. And we only got one segment with the bloodline tonight, which was really, really great. Thank you for pacing it out the way that it's supposed to. We cut backstage where we also have a returning Baron Corbin who is coming back from NXT after being drafted back to SmackDown. And it's really interesting because it seems that we're going with a face Corbin this time around, which, I mean, he kind of was a face when him and Braun were the Wolf Dogs in NXT.
Yeah,
I'm so sad they're not in the same brand.
The character, but not continuing the character because he's not part of the Wolf Dogs, but he's a face still.
Yeah, so Baron Corbin is here. He wasn't sure of who his character was when he was back on the main roster. He didn't know whether to be happy, sad, like lone wolf, like going through all his gimmicks.
He was, I have a lantern ring Corbin, different emotions. I'm emotional Corbin. Watch me cut a promo because I'm a piece of cardboard, but I am sad, guys. Can you tell I am sad? Because I am sad. Oh, look, guys, I'm now happy. I'm a happy wrestler. Can you tell I'm a happy wrestler? Because look at me, I'm happy. Yeah, he's gotten so much better since then.
He really, really has. And ultimately, this is to set up with our match later in the evening, and hopefully this could be a really nice feud later. But Carmelo Hayes comes and interrupts, and we're still getting heel Carmelo Hayes, which I'm super excited about.
This match probably shouldn't have happened.
I mean,
Baron is just coming off of NXT. Why do you need him losing? And you can't have Carmelo losing this soon either. It should have been a different person, I think.
I mean, that is very, very fair. But at the end of the day, hopefully Mr. Paul Levesque has plans for Baron. But if I would like to see this be Carmelo and Baron's first feud now that the draft is locked in and everybody is set to where they are at, I would like to see Carmelo and Baron feud for a little bit. And I'm biased because we just recently saw them all over NXT, but it's going to be a good time. We get lots of different small video packages throughout the evening, hyping up the people who got drafted to SmackDown. And we get one of those here where we get a vignette for DIY, who is coming to SmackDown very soon. I'm not going to lie, as much as I loved seeing them on Raw, I feel that SmackDown is going to allow DIY to thrive a little bit better.
If they don't put the bloodline in the tag picture, yeah.
For sure. I think DIY's time to shine needs to be happening. Which then leads into our first King of the Ring quarterfinal match, which was part of the backstage promo, because we get Baron Corbin versus Carmelo Hayes. Again, not really much to add here because this was like a 6-7 minute match. Baron Corbin looked really great in here. The ring, the work in NXT has transferred over like a video game DLC pack to SmackDown. He looked great. Carmelo looked great. Though the finish was a little bit wonky with the, schoolboy roll-up kind of thing, which allowed Carmelo to win. But other than that, I thought this was a fine match. This was great. It was fun to watch.
Yeah. It ended with the most devastating move in all sports wrestling entertainment, the surprise roll-up.
Surprise roll-up.
So it was like, yeah, he won, but it was a fluke.
I mean, that's very,
so there's
very
more,
fair.
But it was still stupid. They shouldn't have faced each other. But we continue.
So after that match, we then, unlike the posters for a bunch of these pay-per-views, we actually get to see Bayley have his backstage promo. I just want to go on a side tangent. How do you not put Bayley on these posters for these pay-per-views? Like, there's a running trend where she's always left off of these posters.
I don't know. I think it's just something they've noticed, so they're just going to keep doing it.
I think it would be funny if we come to find out it was like, yeah, at first I didn't like it, but then I told them to keep doing it because it's funny and it's memeable, and I'm like, I'm kind of here for that if that's the case. But Bayley is asked who she thinks is going to win Queen of the Ring, and she talks about how the field is filled with lots of good competitors, and she talks about she thinks that Jade is going to be doing really great, which prompts Chelsea Green and Piper Niven to come in and interrupt. Mostly Chelsea talks about how it's rude to not include Piper in that conversation, and Piper is going to wipe the floor with Jade, and which prompts Chelsea to leave, and Piper just sizes up Bayley and leaves as well, which makes me excited. We'll talk about that match in a little bit because honestly, that was kind of one of my favorite matches of the evening just because of how good it was. But we cut to commercial and we come back and Randy Orton gives another promo. He talks about how he's facing AJ in the main event tonight. And even though AJ is phenomenal, see what I did there, he's going to give an RKO to AJ. And before Randy proceeds to then leave and then come back, and then he just lets his anger out a la Kevin Owens and talks about how the bloodline put Kevin on the shelf for a little bit and how he's going to give RKOs to everybody. He's going to be like, Oprah in for you get an RKO and you get an RKO.
This reminds me of the time back in the 2000s. I don't remember who he was in the feud with, but they banned the RKO for it. So like the week or 2 weeks going up to this pay-per-view, this match, he was RKOing everybody.
I love to see it. But we then get into my favorite match of the whole entire night. We get our second Queen of the Ring quarterfinal match, Jade Cargill versus Piper Niven. This was a Haas woman fight. This was so fun to watch.
Big woman slapping big woman meat.
Yes, Piper continues to be underutilized and shows why she's actually really good. Of course, my favorite was definitely the Jaded on Piper. She sold that thing really well.
Jade was also selling this match. She sold that slap from Chelsea.
She knocked Chelsea out of her shoes when she punched her off the ring apron. That was funny to watch.
It's finally nice to see Jade Cargill finally wrestle after how long before she debuted?
That's very, very true. And on top of that, too, it's nice to see her in a singles match that isn't a squash match. Because this match went on for like good 6-7 minutes too, and it was a nice back and forth because it wasn't just Jade overpowering Piper. It was decently evenly matched with back and forth. Piper throwing Jade into the turnbuckle and Jade selling that. This was a really fun match, and I'm like, this is the Jade Cargill that I knew was there. We just needed to work our way to get to her. I love you, Jade. Jade picks up the victory. She will be moving on, which sets up the first semifinal match, Nia Jax versus Jade. I'm like, oh, this. Ooh.
I think this is the first time they faced each other since she threw her over the top rope at Rumble, right?
Yep. So I was like, this is gonna be a good payoff. I'm calling it right now. I
Ooh.
think Jade makes it to the finals.
Oh yeah, I think it's gonna be Jade. I don't even know who else is doing this. I don't watch Raw.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember what I was looking into. I think there's stakes for King and Queen of the Ring. I think Triple H said that the winners get a championship match at some point. So that's what I've been saying, that King and Queen of the Ring should be, that the winner gets a championship match of their choosing. So we'll see what happens with all of that. But this was a phenomenal big woman doing big women things match. Jade moves on. We get a nice video package of the newly drafted Shinsuke Nakamura coming over to SmackDown, continuing to be the JoJo anime villain we all love him
Just have him
being.
start winning matches.
Yes, but he needs to start winning matches. This is exactly that's what needs to happen, and I'm hoping that on SmackDown he can start winning matches, because we love Shinsuke Nakamura being the next JoJo's Bizarre Adventure villain. We just need him to win matches to give him that credibility. I love you, Shinsuke, but we got to get you winning some matches, which then leads into a kind of a shorter match, our third and final women's match of the evening. This was the third quarterfinal match for Queen of the Ring, Bianca Belair versus Candice LeRae. Look, I like Bianca. She ended up winning, but can we talk about how great Candice was during this match? Candice looked great.
They need a. You're right, she did, but they need to do something with her at Indy because they just character switch. And they're not doing shit.
Yeah, so what I'm hoping is that once we get past Queen and King and Queen of the Ring, and we have a couple of weeks before we build toward Clash at the Castle, because lest we forget, once King and Queen of the Ring are done, our next pay-per-view is only like 3-4 weeks after that with Clash at the Castle.
That is true. We're going to be getting some Gunther, Ilya, Drew McIntyre shenanigans, I think, during that one.
And we got to get all the Europeans in there. Throw Sheamus in there too.
European.
Get all of the folks there. I think we're saving Ilya and Gunther. They might have a tease somewhere during the King of the Ring, but I don't think we get a full-blown like crazy match until we get to Bash in Berlin in August.
Or it might be Gunther versus Ilya for King of the Ring.
That match is... even though Minnie here doesn't watch Raw, I want to say that Ricochet versus Ilya on Monday Night Raw was the best match of the whole entire night, and nobody can argue with me and tell me otherwise.
I saw that match. I mean, Ilya busted himself open.
I need Ilya to remember that wrestling is like not real, because he's out here like throwing everything in the kitchen sink, and it's fantastic to watch. But back to what we were talking about, I agree with you, Minnie. I hope that Candice gets utilized. Well, both Candice and Indy get utilized better. But Bianca's moving on, and she's either going to... Well, we know who she's going to be facing next, because we got the results of the house shows. So Tiffany Stratton beat Michin, so it's going to be in the semifinals on the SmackDown side, Nia versus Jade, and Bianca versus Tiffany. And then whoever wins that goes on to the finals to earn the spot in, for SmackDown for Queen of the Ring. I'm excited. This is going to be great. Bianca Belair, you are great, but Candice LeRae looked really good in this match too. All right, so now let's get into our obligatory Bloodline segment, which was only one this whole entire episode of SmackDown, which was great. But we cut backstage to the Bloodline, where it is Solo Sikoa, Matonga, and Tonga Loa. And Paul Heyman, the wise man, walks in. And essentially, Solo Sikoa, not subtly, but definitely threatens Paul Heyman's life a couple of times. And says that, it's Paul Heyman's fault for pulling Roman out of the draft. So therefore, that's why the Bloodline got drafted in the third round instead of the first round and not the first pick. And I was like, Paul Heyman's going to get his butt whooped at some point. It's going to be fantastic. But Solo Sikoa is looking at Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa at the end of this. And he's like, oh yeah, we're going to get this man later, but not right now. Paul Heyman, blink if you need help. Blink twice if you need help.
He gave it the most I feel like Solo was about to kill.
Bro, he had the whole
when he hugged Paul Heyman, I thought Paul Heyman was about to die.
Paul Heyman was about to get this Samoan spike. But Solo Sikoa had the glove on. I was just like, what in the OJ Simpson is this? I'm just saying, man. I'm like, Solo Sikoa is out here looking like the Weeknd, but the Samoan version with the glove and everything. He's about to kill Paul Heyman. We're going to dump his body somewhere. It's really nice and interesting to see, because this is what I've wanted to see from Solo for the longest time, and now that he's kind of in the spotlight, now we're getting to see the viciousness that is Solo Sikoa, because Roman Reigns was also vicious, but he was smart about it. Solo Sikoa don't care. Roman Reigns says that the people who deserve it will get beat up. Solo Sikoa is just like, I'm gonna beat you up. I'm gonna beat your mama, your daddy, your grandma, auntie. Everybody's gonna catch these hands. And a Solo Sikoa kind of running roughshod on SmackDown is a scary thought, but it makes me intrigued as a viewer.
At least they're doing something with him.
Right, he's no longer just the silent enforcer type. Now he's kind of taking the spotlight, and it makes that when Roman Reigns inevitably returns to set up a match between Solo and Roman, I'm super excited for it now. But Paul Heyman's gonna die. He's like, if he dies, he dies. He's about to get...
No, I feel like when they finally turn on him is when Roman comes back.
Yeah, that's for sure. So we leave our Bloodline segment. We get a video package reminding us that Andrade is now on SmackDown, which also makes me excited. He's probably going to stay on this brand because, Charlotte's here too. So when Charlotte comes back from injury, the power couple of SmackDown will be a thing. Which then leads into our second King of the Ring quarterfinal match. Originally, this was supposed to be Bobby Lashley versus Matonga, but due to not being medically cleared, Bobby Lashley gets pulled, and then this becomes Angelo Dawkins versus Matonga. I want to say this as lovingly as possible. I love Angelo Dawkins, but I feel that we could have stuck Montez Ford in this.
I feel like this was supposed to be Bobby Lashley since he got hurt. We don't know if that's a work or not, but since he got hurt, like, all right, so the next best option of another big dude is
Angelo. Which makes a lot of sense. But regardless, this was Matonga's coming out party, his first full-length singles match in WWE, coming over from, New Japan and whatnot. I thought this was a really good match. This was great. Matonga ends up picking up the win through the bloodline shenanigans and interference, and poor Angelo Dawkins gets beat down after the match too.
Yeah, bloodline things.
Fantastic. So Matonga moves on into this tournament. Then we get a really weird sponsored video package / promo / vignette by Progressive Insurance that kind of explains the also coming to SmackDown, Ms. Blair Davenport being drafted from NXT to SmackDown. I'm excited for Blair. The formerly Mrs. Ospreay is going to kill it. I'm excited for some brutality.
Formerly, I thought she still was Mrs. Ospreay.
No, because there's a whole thing, and we could talk about it afterwards, because she's currently dating one of the other NXT superstars, and Riley Osborne, but that's neither here nor there. Which then leads us into our main event of SmackDown, the third King of the Ring quarterfinal match, AJ Styles versus Randy Orton. This was the longest match of the whole entire evening, because we got 2 commercial breaks through this whole entire thing.
Yeah, but I mean, what do you expect from these 2 old goats?
That is very true. This was also a phenomenal, all pun intended. This was a really great match between AJ and Randy. I'm like, can these 2 ever have a bad match?
No, every time they're in the ring with each other, it's a fucking banger.
It really is. There are a couple parts where they made me believe AJ was going to win, but of all the matches that were made for this tournament, this was the one that I still had trouble calling. I was like, okay, Randy could probably win, but I can also see reason why AJ could win. Ultimately, I sided with Randy Orton, but there were a couple of spots where I was like, oh, AJ might actually win this thing.
Yeah, it was a possibility. Yeah, it could have gone either way.
It really could have, but ultimately, I think the right decision was made as Randy Orton picks up the victory here. He ends up moving on to the next round, in which we have our semifinal matches set for the SmackDown side. It's going to be Matonga and... Hold up, look at this bracket real quick. It's going to be Matonga and Carmelo, I believe? Yeah, Matonga and Carmelo Hayes in semifinals number 1, and then the second semifinal match is going to be, because we got the results that LA Knight won his match, and so it's going to be LA Knight versus Randy Orton. So that should be interesting as well to see who moves on to the finals.
Yeah, we'll see where this goes.
We shall see. But that is where we end SmackDown this week. So overall, this is a really good show. So now let's get into our ratings. Honestly, I'm gonna give this a solid 8 out of 10 for SmackDown. This was all focused on King and Queen of the Ring. The matches themselves were digestible in the sense that each was like 6 to 7 minutes, except for our main event. And there wasn't really a lot of filler, which I really appreciated. This was a breath of fresh air because the last couple of SmackDowns have been, I'm not sure how I feel. This was a good one. Damn, Professor, you actually missed a decent episode.
Well, he said he was watching it. He's just also trying to do a bunch of other things at the same time.
Yeah, that's very, very true. So I'm definitely going to get his takes later in the week. But I give this an 8 out of 10. Minnie, how did you feel about this SmackDown?
I'm going to give it a solid 7. Everything, this actually had more women's matches on a single card for a show than I've seen on most cards in a long time.
That is very true. But that does bring us to the end of Friday Night Faction. So before we sign off, just to get another announcement, because this was said during our live stream last night over on Collision and Rampage, but I also want to do this in the edited review. This upcoming week for the BC WrestlePod crew, the week of May 12th, 2024, so this whole entire week, 50% of us are all going to be hustling at the New Jersey Wrestle Show in New Jersey this upcoming weekend. So that is the East Coast Collective plus myself. So the East Coast boys plus myself will be over at New Jersey WrestleCon hustling for the crew, which means because we are going to be missing half of our hosts, this week is going to be a little bit different because we are going dark for most of the reviews. Now, for this upcoming week, we are still going to have a Monday Night Raw review and an NXT review, but that will be it. That means there will be no Dynamite, no Ring of Honor, no TNA, no Rampage, no SmackDown, no Collision reviews this upcoming week, which is going to be interesting. So there may or may not be extra content that gets uploaded while we are in New Jersey, but as far as this goes, we will be going dark for the majority of this week, which means this is a perfect time for you to catch up on all the other stuff we have here on the YouTube channel, and also kind of get ready because we got a lot of stuff planned for the summer. I'm telling you that right now because you need to be prepared. We got all the summer pay-per-views, we got the TV shows, and we have some other plans in the work that I need to finalize, but expect something different for the summer. It's going to be a good time. And there might be something special planned for the 1-year anniversary of our YouTube channel, as we're coming up in June to the 1-year anniversary that we started this whole thing, which is going to be fantastic. But that's going to be it for me and Minnie. From us two, the Professor, and the rest of the BC WrestlePod boys, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay iconic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We will catch you on the flip side, but until then, ta-ta for now.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's gonna happen next time? Well, you're gonna have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.